And incredibly, we've reached our silver anniversary. It's the episode 25 of Idiot Wind, our blustering course and meandering way through Dylan Vinyl, the definitive collection. And
or as I like to call it, the declining years.
Yes, thank you for that, Sid. You could get changed to this. Don't put yourself out for these broadcasts, will you? What we're doing here now, it's 1985. It's the year of Live Aid. It's the year of Madonna. It's the year of Michael Jackson. And it's the year of their main competitor, Bob Dylan, with Empire Burlesque. A troubled record, I think we can agree. Of course, being a part of this collection, it comes with a fabulous magazine. And I don't know where they've got that cover picture from. Oh, I do. It's there. And inside, there's a stunning picture of Bob looking pretty pensive, I think. And I wonder, looks a bit familiar, that picture. I wonder where I've seen that picture before. And indeed, I didn't have to look far because it's just inside the cover of the album there. Well done, magazine people. And another incisive and one might say definitive, as they do themselves say, overview of this record. With this record, not many people bought Infidels, Sid. I know you're shocked by that, one of your favourites. But the record company had a bright idea. And like most bright ideas record companies come up with, it was absolutely shit. It's the idea of getting Arthur Baker to mix this album. He was then 26. African Bambaataa, Bruce Springsteen dance mixers. He's the guy they thought who would be ideal to mix a Bob Dylan album. And when he heard, he was over the moon. He thought, this is my chance to make an album with a band in a room and we just play the songs. And he said that excitedly to the CBS blokes. And this is, oh, no. Oh, you've got the wrong idea there, my son. And so he found himself having to 80 up this record. Bob was losing his way in the 80s, and he just about lost it here. The songs of this record are a very mixed bunch. There are some good songs, but there are some very poor songs as well. What you'll notice particularly is the opening song, Tight Connection to My Heart. That was recorded during the Infidel sessions as Something's Got a Hold of My Heart. This is a totally rewritten lyric and totally re-recorded track. It's probably not as good as the original. Clean Cut Kid, a very average rocker, that was also recorded on Infidels. And this is a different version to the probably better version they did on Infidels. This has got Ron Wood on guitar, though, because this is one of those albums where the cast of characters in their hundreds change with every sodding track. One of the most egregious moments of this album is when there's an actually good song. When the Night Comes Falling from the Sky was recorded several times in the build-up to this version here. And it was usually recorded with members of Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band. And we've now heard 3 versions, I think, on the bootleg releases, bootleg series releases of their versions. Whatever you think of this version, one thing we can charitably say is this version is absolutely shit compared to any version they're on, with Roy Bittan on piano and Steve Van Zandt on guitar. There's a magnificent slow version, and there's a couple of fantastically dramatic, rocking, fast versions. On this version, it seems like we've got the Chipmunks on backing vocals and some kind of prefabricated Bon Tempi organ 80s background with pre-processed drums, and they're all completely inappropriate for the song. So there's that. Another song of worthy of mention is Emotionally Yours, which is one of the 2 big ballads on this song. Emotionally Yours was actually a number 5 hit in the R&B charts for the OJs sometime after this album came out. So this continues the run of Bob writing hit songs for other people that do absolutely sod all when he records them. The final track on the album, Dark Eyes, is an acoustic song performed entirely solo, quite different to the rest of the album. And one gets the feeling this is what Arthur Baker actually wanted to do, because when they got these huge conglomeration of pre-processed, digitally driven, huge drum-sounding, tinny songs, he suggested to Bob, what would be really good if you ended this album with an acoustic song just on your own. And Bob said, went home to his hotel, which is probably the Plaza, by the way, at this stage, it's in New York. And he noticed a girl as he walked through the foyer, up through the floors to his room. And it looked to him like she was in a bad way and had possibly been attacked by some bloke. And he had a word with them, but then he went back to his room on his own and he wrote Dark Eyes, and the next morning he went in and recorded it. So that's the origin of the last track. Overall, this album is horrendous, really, because it sounds so freeze-dried. As I say, the actual songs are very good. The alternative versions of When the Night Comes Falling from the Sky are astonishingly good. Tight Connection to My Heart was better as Something's Got a Hold of My Heart. But if anyone saw Girl from the North Country, Conor McPherson's play, the beautiful version of that song, same melody, same words, different arrangement, proves that within this homogenized mess, there is some good writing. There's also some very poor writing. Never Gonna Be the Same Again. I've forgotten it already. I've played it umpteen times, this album. I forget Never Gonna Be the Same Again while I'm listening to it. Trust Yourself. He could do that in his sleep, and it sounds like he did. Something's Burning. No. Seeing the Real You at Last. I don't care. One thing about this record, which came out in 1985, is that it was completely overshadowed by another Bob release the same year. Later in 85, Columbia released this. This is Bob Dylan Biograph. This is an original Christmas present copy I got in the 80s. It's a 5 LP set. This is a 12 by 12 box, 5 vinyl LPs. And this is the box credited with basically starting the rock box set era, because this is an overview of Bob's entire career from the very start. There's 53 songs on 5 albums and 21 rare and unreleased recordings from 1961 to 1981. And inside there's 2 booklets, both of which feature the results of an interview by then Rolling Stone journalist and future film director Cameron Crowe. There's a long interview in this booklet, and in this yellow booklet, there's a track-by-track rundown, which rather uniquely includes, at this stage in the career, comments from Bob himself on many of his songs. One of my favourites is I'll Be Your Baby Tonight, where he seems to suggest it could be about an actual baby, but I think he's joking. It's a tremendous overview of his career, and it's got some unheard songs. It's got, unreleased things people had never heard, like, for example, Mixed Up Confusion, which was recorded in 1962 and is recorded with an electric band. And that's quite a shocker for when you think of the course of the career. But he was obviously thinking about that from very early on in his career. He always wanted to have an electric band. And this was widely hailed as a brilliant collection, and its reception completely overwhelmed that of Empire Burlesque, an album for which I don't think Bob toured at all. So what did you think of Empire Burlesque?
Well, I thought it was brilliant. I thought the production was, yes, it has all the hallmarks of 80s kind of hallmark trademark sounds, but overall, I thought some of the songwriting was just, you know, a little short of magnificent, really. There was a sharpness and incisiveness. There was the performance. No, it was shit. It was.
Yes, I thought you were taking the piss.
It was just. It was. It's a masterclass in mediocrity. I just no. I can't. I mean, I'm pleased to hear that, you know, you have a similar view. I mean, to me, there's little difference between this. I'm bound to say there's little difference between the quality of this than, say, the quality of the songwriting on Infidels, I've got to say.
That just proves your own lack of sensitivity.
But man, you know, how he can get away with putting out this absolute dreck is beyond me. The one exception, and I do mean this most sincerely, as Huey Green used to say, the one exception to all of this, and hands down the best track, not only on this album, but actually I think the best track of this whole period, is Dark Eyes, which I thought was captivating, heartfelt. There was a presence in the recording for me, which I really felt like I was listening to an artist singing something that he kind of, you know, had confidence in, believed in, hadn't just sort of gathered together a bunch of stuff and then sort of let somebody else put it together. It sounded to me, it had an immediacy which I think really came across incredibly well. I'd read the story, I'd not heard the album before, so when Dark Eyes came on, I was like, what the, you know, I was kind of taken aback by it, and I checked out the story that you've already told, and you know, I thought that was quite good because it shows that somehow, against it, or while he sleepwalks through these albums, every now and again he wakes up and writes something that's worthy. There's one, it's just in my ears alone, there's no question of him having ripped it off at all, but there's an echo in a track called Seeing the Real You at Last, I think it's called.
Yeah.
There's a little turnaround that goes in there, and it's an ascending thing, and it reminded me of a turnaround in Jethro Tull's Teacher, which again uses a similarly ascending device, and that for me was the fact that I thought, oh, that reminds me of Jethro Tull, was the absolute highlight of this album. The fact that it reminded me of Jethro Tull, with the exception, as I say, of Dark Eyes. I will never play this album ever again. And I'm ever so glad I bailed out on the definitive vinyl series, because it means that I haven't spent 20 odd pounds on what is, I have to say, one of the poorest sounding albums I've ever had the experience. It makes Infidels look like a towering classic, and that's saying something. Yeah, so that's my take on it.
I'll just add one more thing. One of the strangest things about this album, and I'm just going to hold this up to the camera now so you can see. This is the inner sleeve. As you can see, these are the full lyrics to the album. That's never happened before. This is the first studio album, on which Bob Dylan has included the words to all the songs. And I find it astonishing that of all his albums, he chooses this one. Particularly when you look at the song Tight Connection to My Heart, brackets, Has Anybody Seen My Love? which was called Something's Got a Hold of My Heart, when he recorded the better version, which was in the Infidel sessions. That song started out with the line, "Eat, drink, and be merry," they say, before he starts being miserable. But on this one, he says this: "I'll go along with the charade until I can think my way out." That's a line from a Star Trek episode called "The Squire of Gothos," as is well known now. He's obviously just writing the song while watching the telly, isn't he? And in the second track, "Seeing the Real You at Last," there's a couple of lines, I think from the Maltese Falcon, definitely from Humphrey Bogart films. And this is, later on, he's accused of this kind of thing, but there's always a purpose to what he does at its best. On an album like Time Out of Mind or Love and Theft, he's doing something deliberately to draw you down the line to something else. In this, these are just random phrases, and it's astonishing. I mean, I agree, Dark Eyes is the best song on this album. It's my favorite song as well. That's got a nice lyric. That makes sense. It follows a through line. Clean Cut Kid follows a through line. I just think it's a boring one. When the Night Comes Falling from the Sky, that's got great words. And in the rejected versions, he said the versions with the members of the E Street Band was rejected because it sounded too much like Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. Well, it perhaps will if you're using the E Street Band, won't it? I mean, anyway, got you there, Bob. But you know, that could have been a great track. It could have been like "The Groom Still Waiting at the Altar" was on "Shot of Love," which he left off and then put back on again. But it's not. It's some kind of sub-disco paste, that backing track. It just doesn't work at all. And up until now, I think this is the worst Bob Dylan album. And there's, unfortunately, worse to come. So that's my view.
So what is next?
Well, we're missing one out in the sequence of albums, but next, in episode 26 in the sequence, it's Down in the Groove.